How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Daled, Daf 4 of Masechta Makos. Friends. Alright, let's do it. Okay, we're going to start 4 lines from the bottom of Daf Gimel Amid Beis. Says the Gemara, Vam Rav Yehuda Marav, says Rav Yehuda Marav. So we're continuing on like some things where Rav Yehuda Marav says something and then Rav Kahana asks a question on it. So Rav Yehuda Marav, Shloshes Lugin Mayim Shenofel Esochan Kortov Shel Yayin Mar'ein K'mar Yayin V'nofel Lemikveh Lo Psalu. Wow. Okay. So basically, if I understand correctly, it's talking about a mikveh that is not yet a mikveh. It doesn't yet have 40 sa'ah of rainwater. Okay, and then, now of course it needs to be rainwater. It can't be drawn water. It can't be mayim she'uvin. So, it can't be mayim she'uvin. So now if 3 lugs of mayim she'uvin gets mixed in at this point before there are 40 sa'as of rainwater, right? Because once there's 40 sa'ah of rainwater, then you can add as much mayim shuvin as you want, I think, right? I think that's how our mikvahs kind of work. You have like your 40 sa'ah of rainwater, and then that kind of gets mixed with like a whole bunch of other water, and like I think that's fine. But I guess to establish the 40 sa'ah baseline of rainwater, you have to have 40 sa'ah of rainwater, and if 3 lugs of mayim she'uvin gets mixed up before that point, it's going to passel the mikvah. That's how I understand it. So now, what's interesting is also, if I understand correctly, there's a lot of details here, but if I understand correctly, basically it gets ruined if 3 lugs of mayim she'uvin gets mixed in. But if 3 lugs of wine gets mixed in, that's okay. It's not, as long as it's not water. Right? Kilu, it's a problem if there's water. It's a problem if there's mayim she'uvin. That's the problem. You need rainwater, not drawn water. So if you have the wrong type of water, that's going to mess things up. If you have wine that gets mixed up, well, then it's apples and oranges. Kilu, right? We just don't count it, I guess, right? If it's wine. But if it's mayim she'uvin, well, then that's, it needs to be kosher water. That's non-kosher water. That's going to cause problems. So now, so Rav Yehuda Marav, says Rav Yehuda Marav, if you're trying to, put together a mikvah, 40 sa'ah of rainwater, if you have shloshes lugin mayim, so now if you have, if you have 3 lugs of mayim she'uvin, that's going to be a problem. But shenafel l'sochan kortov shel yayin, but a shtickle wine falls in there, into the 3 lugs. So into the 3 lugs, I imagine before it gets mixed up with the rest of the mikvah. So in those 3 lugs, a shtickle wine gets in there, mar'ein k'mar yayin, and it looks like wine. V'naflu lemikveh, and then this mixture falls into the mikveh, lo psalu. It does not passel the mikveh. The mikveh remains okay. I mean, I guess you'd have to still have 40 sa'ah of rainwater, but so long as you have 40 sa'ah of rainwater, it would still be okay. Maskef Rav Kahana, but Rav Kahana now asks the kasha, v'chima bein zeh l'meitzeva. But why should this water, this mayim she'uvin, that wine gets mixed into it and it looks like wine, we're saying that's okay, but we learn that, we're about to see that if you have 3 lugs of mayim she'uvin and some other dye falls in, some other coloring agent falls into it, it would be puzzle. Why should this mixture that has wine in it be any different than mixture that has some other coloring agent in it? It's not that we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi, Yomi says, Rabbi Yossi meitzeva postlin as hamikvah b'shloshes lugin, that 3 lugs of colored water would passel. A mikvah amalei ravis, Rava answers, hasam ma'iditziva mikre, hacha chamra meziga mikre. Well, the colored water is called just that, colored water. So it's mayim she'uvin that's colored. Well, mayim she'uvin is going to passel the mikvah. Here it's called diluted wine, right? We don't treat it as mayim she'uvin, we treat it as diluted wine. And since we treat it as diluted wine, it's treated as essentially wine, so wine will not passel the mikvah. Mayim she'uvin will, wine won't. And therefore, that's why in this case it's acceptable. Chaver, it's in the morning right now. I have my handy cup of coffee. L'chaim. Okay, so now, but 1 second, Rav had just said that you have 3 lugs of Maim She'uvin, that a shtickle wine gets mixed into it, and now it looks like wine. Says Rav, the mikveh is still kosher, or at least it's not possible. Whereas Reb Chia says it is possible. Reb Chia says possible. So Rav is saying kosher. His uncle Reb Chia says possible. Lo kasha, no problem. Or Reb Yochanan ben Nuri harabanan. So Rava answers that. So Amar Rava lo kasha, Reb Yochanan ben Nuri harabanan. So Rava answers, well, it's taka machlokes. Reb Yochanan ben Nuri and the Rabbanon. Reb Chia holds like the Rabbanon, and Rav holds like Reb Yochanan ben Nuri. The Tanan is we learn in the Mishnah, Shloshes lugin maim chaser kortov. So if you have 3 lugs minus a shtickle, shenafel l'sochen kortov yain, and then a shtickle wine falls into it, and now so you have 3 lugs. So you had less than 3 lugs of maim shuvin, and then a bit of wine falls in, right? So minus a kortov of maim shuvin, and then a kortov of wine falls in. So now you have 3 lugs, but you have less than 3 lugs of maim shuvin. Part of the 3 lugs is the wine. So mar'ein k'marayin, they look like wine. V'nafel l'mikveh, and they fall into the mikveh. Lo salu, the mikveh is not pasul. However, the implication being, though, that if it was a full 3 lugs that a kortov of wine fell into, it would be pasul, which is unlike Rav, it's like Reb Chia. V'chein gimel lugin mayim chaser kortov, and similarly, if you have 3 lugs of water but minus a kortov, shenofel l'sochen kortov cholov, that a kortov of milk falls into it, umayin kamari mayim, and they look like water, v'naflu lemikveh, and they fall into the mikveh lo psalu. There also it is not possible because you have less than 3 lugs of water. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer Akol Holich Achar Amayre, whereas Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says everything goes based on how it looks, and therefore the implication, the point being that even if you have a full 3 lugs of Maim She'uvin, but then wine falls into it and it looks like wine, so we'll treat it as wine and it will not pass the mikveh, and that's like Rav. So the Tanakama says if you have a full 3 lugs of water and then wine falls into it, the implication of Tanakama is that it would be pasul. That's like Reb Chia. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, it goes based on what it looks like, and therefore it would be considered like wine, and it would not pasul the mikveh. That would be like Rav. V'ami baya ba'i la Rav Papa. The ba'i Rav Papa. But 1 second. Rav says that it's a davar pashit that Rav holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and Reb Chia holds like the Tane Kame. But apparently, actually, it's not so poshit. Rav Papa Taka asks, Rav Papa Taka asks, the boy Rav Papa that he asks, Rav Tani Choser Kortov Beresha, does Rav teach, as we taught, that the first case in the Mishnah is talking about 3 lugs minus a kortov, aval shlosha lugin, but if it was a full 3 lugs of maim shuvin, the Tanakama pasle, according to the Tanakama, would be pasul. Vas Rabbi Yochanan lemeimar, and comes Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri to say hakol holich achar amare, that no, it all goes based on what it looks like, and even if there's a full 3 lugs of maim shuvin, if wine falls in and it looks like wine, we'll treat it as wine and it will be kosher. V'Rav Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and therefore Rav holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, not like the Tanakama, or Dilma, or perhaps Rab Lo Tani Chaser Kortov Beresha, or maybe perhaps alternatively in the Resha, Rav does not teach minus a kortov, meaning the first example of the Mishnah, you have a full 3 lugs of Maim Shuvin, and then wine falls into it. And it's saying, and the first case the Mishnah says that it would not be pasul, and that would align with Rav, which means that Rav is saying also, like the Tanakama, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, ki palag ha-seifa the palag. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is only arguing on the seifa of the Resha, right? Meaning when you have 3 lugs minus a kortov of water, that a kortov of milk falls into it, and the Tanakama says not pasul. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri would say pasul because it goes based on what it looks like, and it looks like 3 lugs of water. But so Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri argues there, but everyone would agree in the first case, which is a full 3 lugs of water and then wine falls into it, is not possible. Both the Tanakama and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri would agree with that. And Rav, Damar Kedivya Kol, Rav, therefore, who says that a full 3 lugs of Maim Shuvin with wine that makes it look like wine is not possible, holds like the Tanakama and like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So therefore, Rave wanted to say that Rav Davka holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and not the Tanakama, but Rav Papa Taka is uncertain. He says it's possible that Rav can actually agree with the Tanakama, depending on what the Tanakama actually says. So the Rav Papa mibayale, the Rav Pshitale. So the Gemara says, look, Rav Papa had this question. Rav Papa didn't know how Rav learned the Mishnah. But Rava didn't have such a question. Rava was convinced that Rav learned the Mishnah the way that we initially learned it, and that he holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Rav Yosef l'shmili hashmaita. Rav Yosef says, I don't know about, I never heard this sugya. Abaye says to Rav Yosef, Atomat ni'alon, v'achi omat ni'alon. To which Abaye, of course, reminds Rav Yosef, because Rav Yosef was sick and forgot much of his learning. So Abaye would remind him of things, and Abaye says, no, you do know about this sugya, and Yitaka taught it to us. And this is Taka how you taught it to us. The Rav lo tani choser kortav bereisha, that Rav actually, unlike Rava, Abaye says that Rav Yosef taught them that Rav does not teach choser kortav in the reisha, i.e. it's talking about a full 3 lugs plus a kortav of wine, and the Tanakama says it is kosher. Rabbi Yochanan aseifa polig v'Rav damar kedivya kol, and that Rav says not just like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, but also like the Tanakama. Okay, and then technically when Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri argues, he argues on the seifa of the reisha. Fine. V'amar Yehuda Amarav, says Yehuda Amarav, chovis meleya moyim, a barrel filled with water, shenafle liyam hagadol, that falls into the great sea. Hatoivel sham loy, also lo tvila, whoever dips there in the mikvah is not tahor, because chayshina the shlosha lugin shloyu b'makom echad, because we're concerned that maybe there are 3 lugs of water in one place, and that would be a problem. V'davka liyam hagadol, and davka if it is the big sea, dekoi v'kaima, because I guess things don't move there. Avon naira ba'alma, but a stream where things are moving more, where so low, so then that same idea would not apply. Tanam Yachi also in a brace like this, chavis mlei yoyin, a barrel full of water, shenafla liyam hagadol, that falls into the great sea. Hatovel sham lo also lo tvila. Also, if you dip there, it would not work because then you might just be dipping in wine. You can skip chashina and the shosh lugan shuvin shalib makomecha because it's not talking about water. And the Maram says that you could erase that. V'chein kikar shel truma shenafal sham tame. Also, so if you have, let's say this barrel of water that falls into the Yam HaGadol, and then a person who's tamei dips there. So we say not only does he remain tamei, but also we're concerned that Maim She'uvin then may have become tamei from him, and if the Maim She'uvin becomes tamei from him, if Truma then falls into that Maim She'uvin that is now tamei, it'll be metame the Truma. So that's also tamei. Mai v'chein, what is his teaching? Isn't that obvious that it becomes tamei? Well, Ma'od Tema may have thought Huki Hasam Uki. Well, we may have thought that, let's just keep everything on its chazakas, right? Just like we said that you have a guy who's tamei, who goes to the mikveh there, he remains tamei. So let's say also if you have this truma that's currently tahora and then it falls into there, well, we'll keep it on its chazaka that it's still tahor. So we say no, kamash malan, that if after somebody goes to the mikveh in that water, a truma falls into it, we'll say that the truma becomes tamei from the water. Okay. New Mishnah. Midun anubish ploini shechayv lachver masayim zuz v'nimtzu zom and lokal misham. 1 second, gotta rub my nose. Alright, fine. So says the Mishnah something interesting, that if one group of witnesses testifies that somebody owes 200 zuz. Okay, one group of witnesses testifies that somebody, we'll call that person somebody, owes 200 zuzes. So means zuz. And that group of witnesses become Edim Zomimin. Lokin umeshama. Not only do they have to pay 200 zuzes to somebody, right? Somebody is the person who they were testifying against. We're going to call him somebody. So not only do they have to pay 200 zuzes to somebody, but they also get whipped. Because they are separate psukim. You get makis for lo saina brecha et shaker. You violated that law, you get makis, and they have to pay the 200 zuzes because of vasisim lo kashuzom lasus lochiv. That's Rav Meir's opinion. They get two punishments. The Chacham say no. If they're going to pay the 200 zuzes because of vasisim lo kashuzom lasus lochiv, they're not going to get makis, as we're going to see in the Gemara, because the pasuk says, right, kidei rish also b'mispar, right, that you give makis kidei rish also, and rish also is singular. So there's only a singular punishment. If you're already paying, then you're not going to get makis, because that would be a double punishment, a double whammy. Okay, if a group of witnesses testify, a pair of witnesses testify that somebody is chayiv to get 40 lashes, v'nimtzu zomimin, and then the group becomes edim zomimin lokin shmonim. They get 80. Each witness will get 80 lashes. Mishum lo sana be'eched shaker, for 40 lashes for violating lo sana be'eched shaker. Mishum vasisim lo kasher zomam, and another 40 because of vasisim lo kasher zomam, right? That they tried to say that somebody needs 40 lashes. Well, then they also get 40 lashes. So 40 for that and 40 for lo sana. Divra Meir, that's a Meir's opinion. Chachamim in lokin ela ayboyim, whereas the Chachamim say that their punishment is only 40 lashes, not 80. Now says the Gemara, Bishlam l'Rabbanon, I understand the opinion of the rabbis who say ein lokin u'mishalmin, that you only get 40 lashes, that if they're paying the 200 zuzis, then they don't get the lashes. L'Rabbanon k'dei rishaso iksiv, mishum risha achas, ata Michayv of Yata. Michayv Mishum Shtei Rishayos. The pasuk says that by Makis, right? What does the pasuk say? It says, "V'hoyim ben Hakis Harosh." If you have to give Makis, v'pila shoved v'yiku lefanu k'dei rish also b'mispar. That you hit him for a singular thing. Mishum Risha Achas Ata Michayvo. You hit him for one evil that he did. V'yata Michayv Mishum Shtei Rishayos, but not for two. And if he is paying and gets makis, that would be a double whammy. We don't do that. Ella Reb Meir, my time. Why does Reb Meir say that he does get two punishments? Amar Ula Gomer Mimoitzi Shema. Says Ula because Reb Meir takes a precedent from Motzi Shemra, right? If a person marries, right, the fellow marries a fella, and then the next day comes the Bezdin, he says, he alleges that she's not a Besula. So then, if he turns out to be a liar, we whip him, and he also needs to pay, I think, 100 shekels. It's a steep fine. Does it say, yeah, okay. He also Meya Kesef, 100 silver coins. So Gam Motzi Shema. So Gam Motzi Shema. So says Ula. The Meir learns it out from Motzi Shema. Ma Motzi Shema Loka Mishalim. Just like the punishment of a Motzi Shema is, he gets makis in addition to paying a fine. So Af Kol Loke U Mishalim. So therefore, here also is Loke U Mishalim. That here also by Edim Zomin, in addition to paying the 200 zuz in our Mishnah, there would also be makis. Malam Motzi Shema Shekain Knas. For 1 second, I can ask the kasha, but wait, you can't learn from Motzi Shema. Motzi Shema is unique in that the 100 silver coins that he has to pay is a fine. Okay, but Savilak Rabbi Akiva, the Amr Eidim Zomim Knasu. Yeah, but Rabbi Meir holds like his Rabbi Akiva that Eidim Zomim is also a fine. So just like by Motzi Shemra, he gets Makos and he's fined 100 silver coins. So here also, he gets Makos and he's fined to pay 200 zuzis in the example in our Mishnah. Iga Damasni Laha de Ula Aha de Tanya. There are those who teach Ula's statement about Motzi Shemra on the following brisa. The Pasuk says, I think by Korban Pesach, don't leave over anything till the morning. So that's a lav. Don't leave over anything till the morning. So I would think that if you do leave over something till the morning, you'd be chayiv makis, right? Wrong. Because the Pasuk says, Vanosim mimenu ad boker bayish tisrofu, I think. Tisrofu, yeah. That, and whatever is left over, burn. Says Rabbi Yehuda that you don't get makis for noser by Korban Pesach, because normally, if you do a lav, what do you do in order to sort of atone for it? Right? So what's the punishment that you get for that? Makis by default. But here the pasuk is saying, no, it's not makis. That, and if you leave over till the morning, you don't get makis. What you have to do to get atonement is you burn it. That's what you do. So says Rabbi Yehuda, what the pasuk is saying is that you don't get makis. What you have to do is not get lashed, but to burn the noser. So therefore, again, the pasuk is coming to tell you what to do, to give you a positive commandment after a negative commandment, lomar, to say she'ain lokanal, if you don't get makis, rather this is what you do instead. Div Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Akiva, Omer says, Rabbi Akiva, loy min Hashem uzeh. No. That's not the reason why you don't get whipped. Excuse me, I gotta rub my nose again. I think this is the third time. Third time's a charm. That's what they say. They say third time's a charm. Anyways, so says Rabbi Akiva, no, the reason why there's no makis here by noser is because there's no maise. You didn't do anything. You didn't do something, you didn't need it, but you didn't do anything wrong, and you don't get whipped when you have to do a maise in order to get whipped. Here there's stuff just memela left over, and memela became noser. So again, lo Hashem said, elam mishum da'avle lav she'im b'maise, because lav she'im b'maise, v'chol she'im b'maise in lokan olav. Therefore, there's no makis. So does that imply that Rabbi Yehuda holds that lav she'im b'maise lokan olav, right? Because it sounds like Rabbi Yehuda would say that by default there would be makis by noser. It's only because there's that's why there's no makis. But by default there would be makis. What about the fact that it's a lav she'im b'maise? It sounds like Rabbi Yehuda would say, who cares? Lav she'im b'maise lokan olav. Minole. How does Rabbi Yehuda know this? Amar Ula. So says Ula. Gomer min Motzi Shemra. He learns it from Motzi Shemra. Ma Motzi Shemra. Lav Shem Bo Maise. Lokan Olav. Motzi Shemra is a Lav Shem Bo Maise. He's talking. He's speaking. He's not doing anything. He's speaking. It's words. And yet he gets makis. Av Kol Lav Shem Bo Maise. Lokan Olav. So we see that generally speaking, as a rule, lav shem b'maise, you can get makis for. Mala motzi shemra shekain loike u'mishalim. But 1 second, don't bring a proof for motzi shemra. Motzi shemra is unique because it's loke u'mishalim. In addition to makis, he also has to pay. That you learn lav shem b'maise lokan olav from edim zomimin. Edim Zomin, Lav Shem Maise Lokan Olive, just like Edim Zomin is a Lav She'ein Bo Maise, and there's a possibility of Makis, as Rashi points out, Ben Grusha Ben Chalutza, as we learned in the first Mishnah about Ben Grusha Ben Chalutza, so you can get Makis for Edim Zomin, even though there's no Maise. Right, so I've called lav shem b'maise lokan olav. So we see that just like by edim zom, it's a lav shem b'maise v'lokan olav. So also in general, lav shem b'maisa lokin olav. But wait, ma leidim zomim she'kein ain't tzrichin asroya. But edim zomim is unique in that there's no warning. Right? Normally, to get makis, you have to warn the person. But over here, there's no warning. Right? Other judges come in, other witnesses come in and say, "Yimadu eisim b'makom ploni." That's that. There's no warning. Okay, so therefore that makes edim zomim unique. You can't learn from there. Motzi shemra yochich. Okay, so it's not from motzi shemra. Yeah, but motzi shemra is unique, we said, because Loko Mishalim. V'chazor adin. So we're going to say, yeah, but what about Loko Mishalim? Lo rizeh krizeh. Look, the nature of this is not like the nature of that. The nature of that is not the nature like the nature of this. But what the common ground is between Motzi Shemra and Edim Zomim is Lav Shem B'maiseh V'lokin Olav. That the common ground is that they're both examples of Lav Shem B'maiseh. And there's makis, so Rabbi Yehuda will learn from there that Avkol Lav Shem B'maiseh Lokin Olav. That generally you can have makis. What we learn from there is that you can have makis for Lav Shem B'maiseh. But Mala Tzad HaShavah Shaboin Shekein Knas. But 1 second, we can't generally apply Lav Shem B'maiseh Lokin Olav because the basis for that is Motzi Shemra, is Edim Zomim. Those are both examples of fines. So, ha lo kasher, Rabbi Yehuda lo savar lo, Rabbi Akiva. Well, Rabbi Yehuda does not hold like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yehuda does not hold like. So Rabbi Akiva said that Edim Zomim is a knas. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees and says Edim Zomim is not a knas, and therefore, while Motzi Shemra is a knas, Edim Zomim is not a knas. So they don't have that in common. Motzi Shemra and Edim Zomim do not have that in common. Okay, but each one has their own unique stringency, right? By Motzi Shemra, it's Loko Mishalim. By Edim Zomim, it's that it doesn't require Asra. Rabbi Yehuda says, okay, so each one has their own stringency, but what does Rashi say? Since each one of their stringencies is unique, in time Makos tolibo. So the reason for the Makos is not based on that, because then it's not like we're not going to say, well, there's kind of a unique characteristic that they both share. No, each one is separate, and therefore that is not going to be sort of a factor in determining if there is Malkus. And we could say that Lav Shem B'maiseh Lokin Olav based on those examples. What do the rabbis do with Loisana B'rechai Chaka? Reb Meir had said that it's an additional 40 lashes. Right, meaning whether it's money, you say Loko Mishalim, and whether it's Makis, you'll get double Makis, right? Because he's saying Loisana B'rechai Chaka is its own lav that has Makis for it. That's what Meir learns. The rabbis, what do they do with that pasuk? So that's the warning. Loisana B'rechai Chaka is the warning. Don't be an Eid Zomim. For Meir Azhara Leidim Zomim Minale, where does Reb Meir have this warning? Reb Yirmiyah Nafkalei Mi Ba'Nesharim Yishmu V'Yirav V'Lo Yosifu Od. That the pasuk says in the context of Edim Zomim, and whoever is there will hear and they will be scared and they won't do it. That's the warning. The rabbi said, no, that pasuk is needed to teach that we have to announce that these people Edim Zomim, this is what they did. Yeah, well, Reb Meir says from Vanisharim Yishmu V'Yiro, that teaches that there's an announcement. V'Lo Yosifu Od is what teaches the warning. Friends, that was Daf Vav. That was Daf Dalet of Masechta Makis. We learned some halachas about mikveh at the beginning, and the 3 lugs and wine and things like that. And then we got into an interesting machlokes in the Reb Meir and the Chachamim about do Edim Zomim additionally get Makis for Loisana B'rechai Chaka? Reb Meir says yes. The Chachamim say no. Peace out.